You think you know the story of Medusa, the monster with snakes for hair, whose gaze turns men to stone? We see her face on designer logos, in movies, as a symbol of monstrous feminine rage. But what if I told you the story, is just the final, tragic chapter of a much longer, more heartbreaking tale? What if the monster was actually a victim? Today, we're peeling back the layers of myth to uncover the real story of Medusa, the woman cursed by the gods. So, grab a seat, because this is not the bedtime story you remember. Before the curse, before the snakes, and the stone-cold stare, Medusa was not a monster. In fact, she was the very opposite. She was a mortal woman, renowned throughout the land for her breathtaking beauty. Imagine hair like spun gold silk, skin that rivaled the finest marble, and eyes that held the depth of the Aegean Sea. She was one of 3 sisters, the Gorgons. But unlike her immortal siblings, Steno and Euryale, Medusa was tragically, beautifully human. Her devotion, however, was not to her own reflection. Medusa was a devout priestess, dedicating her life to the service of Athena, the powerful goddess of wisdom, warfare, and crafts. In ancient Greece, being a priestess of Athena was a position of immense honor and responsibility. It required a vow of chastity, a commitment to purity and piety. Medusa served faithfully in Athena's magnificent temple in Athens, a sanctuary meant to be a haven of peace and divine protection. People from all over would come not just to worship the goddess, but also to catch a glimpse of the beautiful priestess who served her so well. But as we all know, extraordinary beauty, especially in a mortal, often attracts unwanted attention, not just from men, but from the gods themselves. And this is where the story takes its dark turn. The great sea god, Poseidon, lord of earthquakes and oceans, laid his eyes on Medusa. He was captivated, consumed by a desire that ignored her vows, her sacred duty, and her own will. Poseidon pursued her relentlessly, but Medusa, loyal to Athena, rejected his advances. She wanted no part of the powerful, volatile god. But gods in these tales rarely take no for an answer. In a final, desperate act to escape him, Medusa fled to the one place she believed she would be safe: the sacred temple of her patron goddess, Athena. She ran to the foot of Athena's statue, clinging to the altar, praying for protection. But safety was an illusion. In an ultimate act of desecration and violence, Poseidon followed her into the holy sanctuary and assaulted her right there, on the cold marble floor of Athena's temple. Imagine the horror, the violation not just of a woman, but of a sacred space. The trust in her goddess shattered. Medusa, the victim of a brutal attack, lay in the desecrated temple, broken and terrified. You would expect the goddess she had served so faithfully to rush to her aid, to punish the aggressor, to offer comfort and justice. But that is not what happened. When Athena discovered what had transpired in her temple, her reaction was not one of compassion for her priestess. It was one of pure, unadulterated fury. But her rage was not directed at Poseidon, her powerful uncle, a fellow Olympian god. Challenging him was a complex and dangerous political move. So, Athena turned her wrath upon the easiest target, the powerless, mortal victim, Medusa. Athena saw the event not as an assault, but as a stain upon her temple's purity. She blamed Medusa for allowing herself to be defiled, for luring Poseidon with her beauty. In a cruel twist of divine logic, the victim was punished for the crime committed against her, and the punishment was designed to be as cruel and ironic as possible. The beautiful hair that had attracted Poseidon's attention was the first to go. Athena transformed each silky, golden strand into a hissing, writhing, venomous snake. Her skin, once so smooth, became a grotesque, scaly green. Her lovely face was twisted into a monstrous visage, so terrifying that anyone who dared to look upon it would be instantly turned to stone. Medusa, the beautiful priestess, was gone. In her place stood a monster, a Gorgon, stripped of her humanity, her beauty, her faith, and her home. Athena then banished Medusa to a remote, desolate island, to live out her days in cursed isolation. Her 2 immortal sisters, Steno and Euryale, chose to go with her out of loyalty, sharing her exile. Think about that for a second. The gods punished her, but her sisters stood by her. On that lonely island, her curse became her only defense. The very thing designed to make her a monster was the only thing keeping her safe from a world that had only brought her harm. Any man who came to the island with ill intent, seeking to harm her or claim her head as a trophy, was met with her deadly gaze. It was a tragic, lonely existence. She was no longer hunting. She was the hunted. And that brings us to the final act of this tragedy. The arrival of the hero, Perseus. He wasn't just some random adventurer. He was on a divine quest, sent by a king and aided by the gods including Athena herself. Yes, the very same goddess who had cursed Medusa, now armed a hero to kill her. Athena provided Perseus with a highly polished shield, so he could see Medusa's reflection without looking directly at her. Hermes gave him winged sandals to fly, and Hades lent him a helmet of invisibility. Perseus arrived at the island and found the Gorgon sisters asleep. Using the reflection in the shield to guide his hand, he crept up to the sleeping Medusa. Medusa, who was unaware, defenseless in her slumber, and with a single swing of his sword, he severed her head. The tragedy didn't even end there. At the moment of her death, two beings sprang from her neck. Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, a giant with a golden sword. These were her children by Poseidon, whom she had carried since the assault in the temple. She never even had the chance to meet them. Perseus placed Medusa's head in a special bag and flew away. Her sisters awoke to find their mortal sister slain, and they chased after him, but he used the helmet of invisibility to escape. Medusa's story, however, was not over. Her head, even in death, retained its power. Perseus used it as a weapon multiple times on his journey home, turning his enemies to stone. When he was finally done with it, who do you think he gave it to? He returned it to Athena, and she, in a final act of victory and eternal punishment, placed the head of the woman she had cursed onto her own shield. The Aegis Medusa's face became a symbol of Athena's power, a warning to all who would dare challenge her. The victim's image, forever worn as a trophy by her punisher. So, when you see the image of Medusa today, remember the full story. Remember the beautiful, devout priestess who was punished for being a victim. Her story is a powerful, ancient reminder of how narratives can be controlled by the powerful, how victims can be blamed, and how a woman's story can be twisted until the victim is called a monster. She's more than just snakes and stone. She's a symbol of survival, of tragic injustice, and a voice from the ancient world that still resonates with us today. Thank you so much for watching. If this story made you see Medusa in a new light, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of mythology. Let me know in the comments what you think about Medusa's story. Was she a monster or a victim? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time,